I think Mike, are we on? I don't. Do you see us? Are we on? This is what I
I
wish.
gotta go refresh.
What's that?
Um,
I see
yep.
live as of
Yeah, I
15
see.
seconds. See, this is something that we've been trying to figure out too. Shout out to Restream because you guys got to figure out how to just tell me if on Restream if I'm connected to Facebook because now I'm like, Mike, are we live? Are we live, Mike?
Yeah, we are now, and we have somebody viewing.
Oh, we do. Okay, so we have one person on. Cool. So I think we can just get to it. We posted kind of a heads up before this. You guys, if you just kind of jumped on, you can feel free to. My suggestion is to just pay attention, stay engaged right now, go back to the video once we're done here, and then watch it over again. But tonight is a very special segment for me and also for Mike, and I think for Connecticut as well. David, as you know, I'm a Connecticut resident, and we support Connecticut entrepreneurs, Connecticut businesses. We want the young people back in state. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce David Noble, who was also one of my professors in the UConn MBA program. So, David, why don't you just tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself, please?
So, real simple. I'm David Noble, as you said 3 or 4 times, and I'm the director of the Worth Institute for Entrepreneurship. I'm also the founder of a privacy technology company called GunClear, and I've spent 20 years now as a professional and worked through being a lawyer, doing technology startups, doing IPOs, that sort of stuff. Went back, got my Ph.D. And just keep learning, man. Lifetime learner, right? And that's what this is all about.
David, one of my favorite things about your class, and I think I tagged you in it on LinkedIn not too long ago. One of my best memories of you in the class was 2 years ago, and we were talking about it was the investor relations IR. So when you got to raise capital, pretty much if you're a startup company, and we talked about risk in entrepreneurship and what is risk. And we looked at certain people that in the class, including myself at that time, that weren't entrepreneurs. Maybe they were working a full-time job. They weren't kind of going after what they wanted to do, their passions, their thoughts, their interests, because of the fear of kind of branching into entrepreneurship. And here we are, fast forward 2 years later, in the wake of recession, arguably going into probably depressionary territory. We're seeing a lot of stuff for the first time, and that conversation smacks me in the face every day because who's really risk? What is risk right now, right? Because we're seeing the job force completely change, and we're seeing the landscape change, and people are really rethinking what they should do. And I think I actually saw LLCs. I saw a chart that showed that new businesses, LLC filings, were spiking the highest that they've ever been in 10 plus years. So people are obviously thinking that.
Well, I mean, some of it, yeah, and some of it's necessity, right? So you have opportunity-based entrepreneurship and necessity-based. When you lay off 10 million people, 20, however many people, right? What are they going to go do? Are they going to not work? Are they going to sit around? A lot of people create. They may not be traditional startups, but they create professional service firms. Boom, right? They create podcasts, media plays around the things that they know, and I think that's pretty natural. And we'll see more of that. And then I think we'll see companies raising their first money, products scraping together their first prototypes in the next 6 to 9 months at a much higher rate. And probably 2-3 years down the road, we'll see a massive venture capital boom again, right? I mean, that just makes sense. These things are typical.
So my wife is a first grade teacher, and obviously education changed in 2020 completely. And I followed ed tech for quite a bit in Connecticut now, and that's one industry that I think I've seen really dramatically change during COVID. Is now even we're seeing the way that we teach people has kind of taken its disruptive course now with the internet.
I mean, you guys tell me if COVID did that or not, because I'm pretty sure Masterclass was a thing before COVID. I think Coursera was a thing before COVID. I think EdTech was a thing. And these, Khan Academy, these things were real before. what we're talking about is a different adoption scale and speed, right? I mean, I personally am very interested in ed tech right now. Probably, I thought we were talking about Bitcoin here, but I mean, I think, probably most of my high growth theses right now will be around education, and I have a lot of, thoughts on that. I mean, I'll ask you, can you scale a university to 1 million students?
One thing that I've seen in the Bitcoin space has been like VR application. So, I mean, it's there.
Do you need VR? I don't think you even need it, right? I mean, I think the fact of the matter is, if they have to, if the exigencies become so strong that the whirlwinds of change are moving so rapidly, someone is going to look at that and go, I don't need to defend. I need to go on the offensive, right? Maybe it's Purdue sitting there. They already bought Kaplan. They did that before COVID, right? Like they were going there. Maybe it's Arizona State, maybe, but I could, if I had a university, I could foresee 10 different ways to pay, 10 different product lines. I could see what I acquired you as a customer. Why am I letting you go? Right?
Yeah.
What makes sense out of you pay me for 4 years in a row and then you don't pay me ever again unless you feel like donating? Come on. I know you graduate from college, you have 50 to 60, maybe 70 years of working. How are you going to be skilled 30 years from now to be competitive in the marketplace? Most likely you're going to need to invest significant money for the rest of your life in this development. All of that existed before COVID. What's happening is the speed, the rate of disruption, it's flying through.
Yeah, I agree. I did notice that throughout the last 5 to 10 years, China was really leading the way when it came to distant learning. They have professors here teaching students in China, massive amounts of students all at once, and it seems like that was driving the education market heavily on that spectrum. But now with COVID, I think now it's on everybody's radar that, universities here need to adapt to the future, which is tech. Because I think for a long time, the college model, I think universities are slow to adapt when it comes to this hybrid mentality. But now, with the competitiveness of it being an international situation we're in, because think of it, if you have professors that are excellent overseas that could teach something similar to what a Yale or Harvard or UConn could teach, why not do so?
You don't even have to get that high up, right? You can just put out a Southern. Like you can just put out you can just start causing trouble for the high school to college transition. You can disrupt those markets, right? And I think that I think you're right, Mike. I mean, I think the universities had to adopt new ways of doing things, but they're big institutions and they move slow. I think if you look at any aircraft carrier, right, like it doesn't just turn on a dime. And we want our large institutions to turn like that, but they don't. They just don't. And so, but guess what? When the ship's on fire, they turn a little faster, right?
Yeah, it's how it always.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we're going to see once we actually transition into this new age world with education is ease of payments, and Bitcoin and digital currencies fall exactly into that space. I promote Kingsland University quite a bit as far as blockchain education goes. We have DAP Devs here in Connecticut, down in New Haven. Shout out DAP Devs. So there's a lot of local stuff here as well. But now that we're kind of moving back into an uptrend in the crypto market, obviously that brings the attention with the next wave of growth. But we saw that the chief legal officer of Coinbase, Brian Brooks, was brought in by Steve Mnuchin a few months back to oversee the controller, to oversee the U.S. dollar in the financial system. And now, as of last week, we're hearing from the Treasury Department that every banking institution in the United States will be able to offer crypto custodial services, holding keys and the like for their clients. So I'm expecting that pretty soon here, we're probably going to see, maybe you log into your Bank of America app and then you just have an updated terms and agreements and you click got it, yes, and then are we on the next system or what? Because I think the naysayers are kind of put out now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of adoption and a certain amount of crypto that's going to exist in the world no matter what, right? Like we're like if they didn't kill it, it no longer fits the tulip investment, charts. It's resilience, right? It's shown tremendous resilience at the Bitcoin level. People can knock Ethereum as well, but that's shown tremendous resilience, and still through the bear market has continued to grow with developer adoption. The products are, I'm still a level 1 base layer type person that says I like Bitcoin. There's some privacy coins I like. So I don't know where the DApp market goes. I'm not a believer in DeFi, right? I'm not a believer in the banks holding the keys. Does that speed up adoption? Yes. What good is a bank holding my key? The federal government can still yank my money, right? And I think you should ask the Argentinians how they feel about that whole process. Are you Argentinian, Mike?
No, but we talk about that a lot. Argentina, Venezuela with their situations on currency, Hong Kong being the next one, right? Their citizens are probably going to face a lot of issues when it comes to their currency and protections of it. Here in America, with the devaluation of the dollar as something being foreseen, I think we need to look more into the crypto situation because it just will be adopted. When you look at a crisis, a currency crisis, just like you just mentioned in Argentina, we're not far from there. So, we need to have these conversations and look into the technologies and adapt and adopt it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like as a bare minimum hedge strategy, why wouldn't you? Right? If your net worth is $1 million, why wouldn't you put 50,000 in? If your net worth is 50,000, why wouldn't you put 500 in? And if your net worth is 4 billion, why aren't you holding 100 million worth of Bitcoin right now? What is the downside just as a bare minimum strategy? I know you guys are saying you like precious metals and those sort of things. Bitcoin travels faster and it feels good. It feels right for the world that's being built all around us. Yeah.
Now, with that, how do you feel about, so number one, I want to ask you for the layman, like for people that are watching this, because so we do have Adoption, which is our Bitcoin education service platform. And we always try to break it down to people, the easiest way for them to just understand and get it. Like, okay, I don't need to learn the Bitcoin protocol, but I just need to know how to use it and then get to tomorrow. Where would you put the space right now as in your lifetime, from your experiences, where would you put the blockchain Bitcoin space as far as innovation, new businesses, incomparable to the internet? If you had to put a year, if you had to compare now to the internet, what year would you say it is as far as innovation, new companies, new ideas, developing, the like?
So a long time I was a believer in that, but I would say we're off the chart now. I think the internet scaled easier than blockchain, and I would say I was naive and others were naive to start to plug it into a year. But you don't have AOL yet, right? You don't have anything, and some of the people will hate me for this, but like, you don't have anything that works on the blockchain, right? That's decentralized, that's sovereign and private. You got some things, you got things that have different pieces there. And so we're not even at AOL. And yeah, I don't know how old Mike is, but Joe, you're almost old enough to remember pre-AOL.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like you don't have instant messaging.
I was in middle school for AIM, by the way.
There you are. So there you are, man. You're perfect to know what it was like when that first started. I didn't have that, right? And that's how I feel. There's no blockchain service, no nothing that I have to use. Right now, it's do I believe in the future of the technology? Yes. How long is that tail? Right? I believe in progress and evolution, right? I think like like the world always progresses, the world always evolves. There are downstrokes in these things, but there are moments in time. And so but where is that AOL? That's what I'm looking for. I don't see it. Trying to build in it. That's something I've been working in, and it's hard. It's not easy. Nobody knows what's next. And we just integrated in the GunClear app. We just integrated this onboarding system called Fission, and it looks really cool. I mean, it makes it makes it look easier. It looks faster. It looks like something that will actually allow us to put customers into a product.
So that's a good segue, David. So can you just let the audience know, pitch us on the company, and I know you're privacy focused too, and you're tackling probably one of the largest issues I think this country is facing. So this will be interesting.
Yeah, so we're building a product that is at its core private, and it needs to be private. It also needs to be tamper resistant, and that's a means to record the provenance of firearms from sale to sale. And you know what? You can actually, if you can do that privately, you can actually do more background checks. You can do more things, but it's way more voluntary. It's a better system. It preserves freedom. I always think you don't need to know who I am to sell me anything. It doesn't matter what it is. All you need to know is that I'm okay to buy that. I'm okay to own that. You don't need to know where in the world I live. You just need to know I don't live in North Korea. I don't live in Iran, right? You need to know I'm clear. And that's the idea ultimately behind GunClear is you don't need to know every owner. You just need to know they were all clear. You just need to know it wasn't used by a criminal, right? And it's funny because we go back to your user story, right? Joe, for those of you that don't know, Joe provided one of our early user stories on this. And, people think, people make a mistake with blockchain. They think it's internet ready, like Facebook, mobile, at that level, right? And it's no, we're bare bones building infrastructure. We're trying to figure out how to make this thing really work. People in the gun industry, people think the gun industry is a modern industry. It is 1945, 1950 technology. And there's, for gun owners, that's doable, right? There's some states like Connecticut where it takes you 6 months to become a first-time gun owner. That's wrong. There's some states like Alabama where it takes you 5 minutes, right? And that's probably wrong too. And I think, but if you had a system, a infrastructure that allowed you to clear people reliably, right? Go look at the system the ATF is using and tell me you want that to be your IT infrastructure for transacting firearms. It's brutal. I mean, it's COBOL. I mean, it's again.
You guys pick up the hardest, in my opinion, at least. You guys are tackling one of the best use cases of blockchain and Bitcoin technology and crypto, but also it's the hardest to adopt, to get, in my opinion, I think, to convince people. Maybe I'm wrong, but you brought up my experience, and I agree with you, because right now, as a legal gun owner, you have your paper documents, and if you're not diligent and you don't actually store them properly and you lose it, you're screwed. Because if a cop calls you one day for that serial number and you don't have proof of transfer, you're not hit, but you're going to be dealing with a lot of headaches, right? But so I know I'm very familiar with the crypto space. So obviously I'm firmly aware that we now have the ability to create these digital entities that are unique in themselves. They're really private, and they exist online. So I would be okay with it, but I guess we haven't really gotten there yet with some people where they can trust the internet. Like they can trust that, well, what do you mean this is private? It's never been private before, so why should I trust it's private now? You know what I mean?
So from a market perspective, do you really, how much of the, like the gun market is a massive market. How much of it do you really need to be profitable in a good business, right? And then can you win over those people in time? And, I'm sure there's some people out there that just you never win over, but could you do it and run it and make the world a better place right now? Yes. I think the internet, I think people have to stop comparing the internet to blockchain, right? And that will be, it's kind of like comparing the dollar to Bitcoin, right? Like when you start thinking about things and how many Bitcoin, then you have the adoption you need for that to be money. If you consistently compare it to the dollar rate, then you have a long time of that.
Ugh,
so I mean, it's the
filthy.
same thing.
Filthy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you get to a world where if you return value to the users, right, that's different than a cryptocurrency, right? You're using a blockchain-based infrastructure to return value to users, and I think that becomes interesting in the gun market. I think what we're going to find, with a successful product here is that there are so many mom and pops in this industry that wish they had high quality products built on the core fundamental of privacy and compliance. Because it's hard to be an FFL, it's hard to be an instructor, it's hard to be a range, it's hard to be a specialty manufacturer. People don't realize how many small businesses are in this industry and they have paper and they have to keep that paper. You got an FFL and it's registered to your house, the ATF gets to show up at your house and search everything you have. That you agree to that, right? Another thing, Joe, there's all the class 3 firearms, right? Like or type 3, all that stuff is already registered. Why not do it better, right? And why not protect people?
Yeah.
That's a simple thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so now how to do it and to do it well, that's a whole nother thing. And the last thing in the world you want is to create something that ends up in a shareable document on the dark web.
And that's where privacy really comes in, though. And that's another thing I find that I kind of have a trouble kind of getting across to people is that they've almost been convinced at this point that they don't need privacy anymore. But it's almost like they don't understand that their online presence really is a digital trail of themselves and it's an asset. Like when we were in your class with Akash, that's ultimately what we were trying to do with FitTrack is just to kind of explain the value of data and, and try to get people to understand that it's really important. We're seeing this right now with the whole like Bitcoin privacy debate. Is that now there's companies that exist that are de-anonymizing wallet addresses and identifying people, and privacy is we're starting to understand that how important it is. You guys are built off of Zcash, I believe. So I guess ultimately, if you could just explain to our audience and just talk about why you think privacy is important in general in the digital age, that would be great in general.
So we're not built off of Zcash. First off, we're utilizing ZK snarks for our privacy components, and those are internal. Why does privacy matter? I mean, first off, it allows you to live your life. There's no freedom without privacy, and that's just an end stop. It allows you to live your life on the internet. Ask Kevin Hart ask Kevin Hart what he thinks. You shouldn't have that. Every action on the internet exist in some company's database to be able to track and sell you more, right? Like there should be a level of voluntariness, and we've seen it. We've seen it with manipulation on social media. You've seen there's nothing private anymore, and that changes how people act. It changes how people, how they live their life in a negative way, not a positive way, right? Like, so that's a good question, because I've just talked around it, and I don't have a real good clear why privacy matters in a succinct sentence. Why it matters to me is because I value my freedom to make decisions at the end of the day. And without privacy, you don't have that freedom. That's why we vote in a booth without somebody watching us do what we do. And if you vote where someone watches you, you end up in Soviet Union, you end up in Xi's China, you end up in Venezuela. That's the life you live, and that's not the life I want to live. So that's why it matters to me. A succinct answer is tougher, I think.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And, I think the issue we have with privacy is that, we give up privacy for convenience, and we live on a very convenience addictive society. And so it's trying to actually create systems and even, blockchain itself to be as convenient as we can get it. And also, keep that privacy so that, we could, unbrainwash people's mind that privacy is a hassle and that they're willing to give it up just to get the, that quote unquote, their freedom of being able to do things easier, right? Because that's the issue with social media and, business transactions. They want that simplicity, and what you'll get is a more complicated society, exactly what you're saying, something like a Soviet Union. And we don't need that right now. We're in a very fragile state. So, this is where blockchain is super important, because if we get these systems developed very well, we could have both convenience and privacy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key, right? You always have a sliding scale, and you'll get more adoption with more convenience. When it becomes easier to receive Bitcoin than dollar bills, you'll receive Bitcoin. That's how it works.
And I think that's where we're going to see the adoption come off first. Is like when you start to see the first people that feel the effects of the current financial system. Visa charges me 3% per transaction, where I can take a Bitcoin transaction for 0%. And if I'm a small convenience store that has to worry about my financials, that's a big deal. But David, that brings us exactly into the next point on entrepreneurship in the Bitcoin and blockchain space. We're very new. We talked about that. You said you were a layer one company. We can get into another episode in more detail for the tech-focused people, but this is more the general audience. But, say you're an entrepreneur in state. Say you're a college student right now. Maybe you're a freshman at UConn and freshman at Central. You don't know what you want to do with your path forward, but you like technology and you're into crypto. Where are the opportunities now, and what are you telling your students right now, pretty much?
I mean, I tell them the same thing I always tell them, is to build and just keep building stuff. And whether it's in crypto or not in crypto, if you build something and create some value, then, you have more opportunity than not. And, it's like a podcast like this, right? If someone's tuned in, you've created someone value. They chose to come and listen and learn from you and engage with you. And so that's what I encourage my students to do. Looking at blockchain, we see a bull market, I think, because DeFi has gotten pretty sexy, where it's replaced the ICO of 2017. I was laughing with somebody. I said, well, maybe I'm not positioned to really take advantage of DeFi, and that's why I'm a naysayer, right? Like, maybe if I was better positioned in that market, I would be all about it. But I just think, you have the chance to learn. You have the chance to impact it. There's still invention out there, both at the infrastructure level. There's also the killer app. Somebody's going to build it. I don't know what it is. I don't think instant messaging was going to be the killer app that it turned out to be, right? Like, nobody was like, oh, if we only had instant messaging, that's what would really make this internet thing take off, right? Like, part of it is like, you don't know. I learned that, telling people they had a dumb idea or something back when I was a new professor, and then you see somebody roll that same idea out 2 weeks later for $50, $100 million. So I don't do that anymore. I think timing wise, we got a long way to go. We really need to figure out how to make reliable systems that run easier. I think key management, if I were starting over, that's where I would say spend all your time, because once you figure out reliable key management, going back to Mike's point earlier, right? Like, if it's impossible for me to manage my key, and I've got to, I can't remember that, right? And I can't get it back when it disappears, I'm not going to let a lot of money sit in crypto. And so figuring out how key management works, how maybe social validation and sovereign identity work, these are big areas. Do I think they're solvable today? No. But what will happen is something will roll out and it will work. And then you'll say, or it'll cause the next person to say, well, that's close, but if you just did this, click, and now we're there. So I think it'll come out of left field. I think the internet was so big and so fundamentally different, and people saw how much money was made, that they're already in crypto, right? Like that it's evolved faster. That's why I say putting a year on it's super hard. AIM isn't out there, but there's a lot of people in crypto that they weren't in the internet before AOL, right? And so we got to think about that. Remember, when AOL first came out, people would mail you a CD-ROM that you would, or a floppy disk, right? And it was a crazy, crazy thing. That was a horrible user experience. You'd wait, a picture would come down the screen. It would take you 4 minutes for one picture to come up on your screen, right? That's what the experience like. And I have the internet that already works. Facebook works every time. You guys are on Facebook, right? I mean, it still works. Yeah. It still works. And we haven't put a better solution into the marketplace. And I think when you get something that's good and privacy, then you'll see people choose privacy options when it's better. Tor is a great product. I use it. I love it. It's slower than Chrome.
Yeah, but they're getting better.
It's not.
They're getting
better,
but
it's not there.
Yeah, I know. The browser, the updated browser is a little bit better, right?
Yeah, but you gotta value that component more than anything. And right now, if I had kids, I would have a VPN, and they would have to use that VPN, right? And that's how that would be. And I probably wouldn't make them use Tor. I would probably make them use Chrome with a VPN, and that would be enough privacy and convenience mix, right? And so I don't think. Do I like the idea of perfect privacy? Yeah, I love it. Am I a little bit of a crypto anarchist? Yeah, I am. Am I worried about the whole world falling apart? Yeah, I am. Right. And I think there's a mix between convenience and privacy. And for some of us, we like Tor. Some of us, we can use DuckDuckGo. For the great majority of the world, it's Google, it's Chrome, it's it's Gmail, and that's why Google's one of the top 5 most valuable companies in the world, right?
Yeah. How do you feel about Brave? Kind of adding in.
I've been using it for 3 years. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They say I have basic attention tokens on there. I turned it up as high. I earn them as much as I can. Do I think they're going to be worth anything? No. Yeah. Do I take them anyway?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If they turn into something, and that's how the internet's powered, I've got a nice little supply that I didn't even pay for, right? I just was an early adopter. I think the product, the Brave browser, is as good as Chrome on my Android mobile, if not better. Yeah. And I don't use Safari, so I have no idea. I think Edge is probably the best product on my laptop right now. Mm-hmm. I think Edge has surpassed Chrome, and I think that's why. And Microsoft's doing a really good job of building products. Microsoft's way more dedicated to open source projects than Google. We didn't even get, and I know we're almost out of time here, but we didn't even get into quantum computing, and that's going to change this whole game, right? Like quantum encryption, there was a great article maybe in Science, don't quote me to that, but if you look for it, there was a great article in the last week on quantum encryption and whether that has made a giant leap or not. And encryption itself is changing. That's what I sort of say. This will work itself out. But right now, I like the Microsoft product. I actually like the Brave on my mobile. I use it every day. That's my default my default browser. I use Tor. I use DuckDuckGo. I wish I used them more, but quite honestly, a lot of problems. I mean, even on Edge, I run into all kinds of problems with Google, right? Yeah. So I think that world will have to shake itself out. We're going to have interactivity. The products are going to have to work together. Yeah. And so that's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, David, we'd love to have you on in the future, definitely on the more privacy-focused stuff. We'll go into another episode, more of a deep dive, because clearly we support Bitcoin and Monero. That's what we preach to our audience. Bitcoin, obviously, because it's the first, and it's what everyone ends up holding at the end of the day. But Monero because of the privacy, and then Zcash, of course, is a part of that. So, and if anyone has any questions out there on crypto stuff, if you have any blockchain or Bitcoin business ideas, you can reach out to Mike and I. You can find us at adoptbitcoin.com. That's ADOBT bitcoin.com or adoption.io. And we're up for it because we're connected to people like David, and we're also connected to people like DAP Devs and CT down in New Haven. Shout out RJ. And also, David, where can people find you if they want to learn more or talk about your GunClear product?
You could just Google me, David Noble Yukon. You'll find me, man. Yeah. David Noble Yukon. But you got to add the Yukon part. Otherwise, you get a whole list of Yukons. Now, I'm on Twitter, Class1 Noble, at Class1 Noble. Cool. That's an easy one. LinkedIn, whatever you want. It's funny. RJ is working in R3 now, so he's working on Corda. So if you haven't had him on the show, or you got to go talk to RJ. He's got some cool things going on.
Sounds good, Dave.
Awesome.
Good. And if anyone wants to subscribe again, you can find us at thenonconformist.io/subscribe. And thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a good night.